Let's talk about troubleshooting your ferrocerium rod real quick. My rule of thumb is any more than 3 strikes, if you haven't ignited your tinder, then something's wrong and you need to address that before you continue wasting the resource. 2 things it could be. There's either a problem with your technique or there's a problem with your tinder. There's basically 2 different techniques really that are acceptable, and it depends on your ferro rod composition, you know, how hard or soft it is, as well as, you know, the size of the tinder that you're using. This is what I call the pin and pull method. So this is a great technique for a harder composite ferro rod with a large target, basically. With the thumb assist technique, I'm just using the very end of the rod with a little flick. That's going. That's going. And that's going. First problem could be technique. Are you trying to use a shotgun blast when you should be using a sniper rifle? If you're using the most appropriate technique for your ferro rod and for the tinder you're trying to affect ignition on, the other thing it could be is your tinder. Your tinder's either too damp or it's too coarse. It's not processed down as far as it should be. It needs to be processed down to the point to where it's almost hair-like. I mean, you want your tinder bundle to be finer than frog hair. That's what's going to allow it to combust. When a spark hits this, there's enough surface area, basically, there's enough material here that it can just dissipate that heat and it goes out. These fibers are so small that it can't dissipate the heat. It has to transfer that heat to the next piece, to the next piece, to the next piece, and that chain with air introduced is what causes it to combust. Or it could be damp. If it's damp, you can take the whole thing, put it in your pocket and let it dry out, or on a sunny day like it is today, you can just kind of air it out and let the sun, you know, take away that moisture. If you don't have that kind of time, then what you can do is use something like a wet weather tinder. I've got some fatwood shavings right here. I could use that. Put that right in the middle. I could also use pine pitch. I always carry a little tin around so I can gather pine pitch as I find it. And up in the Northeast, you can get things like birch bark in there. So those are 3 wet weather tinders that you can add to help you get this damp tinder started. With this, I've got a large surface area, big target, but if this is all wet, I need to use precision to get a spark to hit the actual fat wood, which will ignite even if it is wet. So using the appropriate technique for that wouldn't be a shotgun blast, because my sparks could hit anywhere on this tinder bundle that's damp and just go right out. This is an example of when you would want to use, you know, the thumb assist method. And that'll get this thing going for you. Let's talk about another thing that you can do to help you get a fire started with damp or difficult tinder. Most ferro rods are about 4, maybe 5% magnesium. What you can do is take the edge of your knife, and I'll kind of slowly carve off ribbons. And you got to do it slow, because it will spark. I'm scraping some of this ferrocerium material, which contains magnesium, into a pile. Normally when I strike this, I'm limited to the material that I scrape off in that strike, and that may not be enough to dry out and ignite my tinder bundle. With this technique, I've got material from several other strokes that hasn't combusted yet, but it will once it all gathers. And as you can see, I've got a chain reaction going here, and it continues to burn. Those little guys are the guys that's going to get that damp tinder going. So that is another tip for using your ferro rod on damp or difficult tinder.